Nice. Okay, so I figure we'll watch the last part of this, which was the part where we talk about animal ethics.
Sure.
And not to preempt.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm thinking there's parts thinking about the sort of debate advice that you've given to me and also given in your debate tips videos, which I watched in preparation. I think there's parts where I did quite well to stay on the point and go back to the point. But there's also parts where I missed an opportunity to do a good name the trait style thing, which when I watched back I was like, I should have said that. But yeah,
it's good that you're approaching it from a point of view of like trying to sort of like do some theory, get a sense of how you want to approach the debate, then do it, then see which things went right, which things went wrong, and then try to tweak more in the good direction. It's that kind of iterative loop of theory and practice that will get you good at things generally, I guess, but certainly debate.
Yeah, excellent. And that you made that point well in one of your debate tips videos with the jiu-jitsu video with the jiu-jitsu in the background.
Yeah. I mean, there's people who just do the theory side forever and become like content creators and make videos and stuff, and then they get into the situation where there's this huge sunk cost if they ever were to debate, and they probably couldn't even like really defend their views very well. So then they become like stuck in this weird position of being like a ideological kind of mouthpiece who like can't really engage anybody. And then there's people who only debate and just never get good at it because they don't learn any theory. That's the other side of the spectrum. But then it's the combo that's good. It's good to get started on it early and just approach things. It's good to approach things from a position of like learning and trying to get better from the start rather than just like a lot of people just come in. I don't know exactly how to make this point, but there's a lot of people who like trap themselves in the kind of content they make, and just getting into a habit from the very start of like engaging people and genuinely working on defending your points well. It's like a very good kind of approach.
Yeah, I know what you mean by that. Yeah, you should be able to. Well, I mean, yeah, I do approach it with a sense. I mean, it depends who you're talking to, right? But sometimes with a sense of I could be wrong here and I could learn something from this person. The conversation we're about to watch with Paul Wood, I didn't expect to to learn much, and I was not disappointed.
Okay, well let's watch it.
Yeah, so I've put it towards the end here. Let's see. And the environmental impacts and so on, and I think okay. Fair play to us both here. I think we've had a good run over that. Just to wrap up, I'm interested to know about your views on animal suffering, animal ethics, the morality part of factory farming. I know this isn't something that you talk about or write about much, but if you have any views on that kind of side of things, I'd be interested.
Yeah, look, I I've been on various bodies like the dairy board. We have very strict regulations around how animals are handled, and we have strict prosecutions when animals are inappropriate handled. The fundamental I'd say to you is that having been out on a lot of farms and met a lot of farmers and that
this is already incredibly
that
annoying.
They would mistreat their animals.
Just
like we've already got the like appeal to like personal experience on farms or something like that, and just the immediate like, oh, we have practices for that. Like, okay, I mean, I just hate when people say stuff like that, because it's like maybe they're genuinely ignorant, but I think a lot of them, it's a useful fiction. It's like a thing that it gives them a reason not to have to think about their own actions and possibly change. Like, oh, I tell myself this story about how it's all going fine on the farm. It's like, okay, it's when you look at what's happening there, the treatment that is legal and that is according to procedure is totally unacceptable already. The violations of it are just even more excess. So the idea of like just not being, I don't know, like I shouldn't judge too quickly, because like Well, but he's like involved in the. Okay, no, but I mean, this guy can't really do the ignorance card, right? He's like in the industry.
No, yeah, that's right. He's here to give a defense of the industry. Basically, that's essentially his job on various levels.
Right. Yeah. So I have this default thing of like giving people kind of benefit of the doubt because sometimes they have, like, everyone kind of knows animals get treated poorly, but a lot of people have never like actually really genuinely focused on that. And I don't really view those people as horrible because there's a lot of people who have like at some point considered the suffering children in Africa or something like that. They're like, oh, that really sucks. Don't really know what to do about it. Don't really know what to make of it. Don't really spend much time thinking about it. Like I kind of am sympathetic to that, but when someone has, you know, someone's actually gone to them and been like, hey, wait, slow down. You're actually causing this thing. You need to put some attention on it. Like once someone has put any real amount of attention on it and it's obvious and they keep doing stuff like that, that's when I lose basically all respect for that person. So yeah, I don't think that, I mean, I have this default response of giving them the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, if you're like in the industry and this is, I mean, you can't really say that. So yeah, I mean, just the idea of defending the standard legal practice on farms is totally insane. But I think like the framing of it, like the problem is the excess and the violations, and we care about that and we're enforcing it. It's like, how well are you enforcing that? I don't even believe that in the first place, that it's being enforced well. We see things like that shit Joey uncovered. Like, I don't believe that for a fucking second. But the bigger point is, even if you were, you're still defending a Holocaust. So, like, I mean, we can talk about that case without even talking about the violations, and it's not going to be a winnable argument.
Yeah, well, as you said, and as I'll go on to say later in the conversation, even the stuff which is legal, right? It's gonna curl most people's toes when you get into the details of it. And what was interesting about this conversation, you'll see that I have gone down a route of talking about factory farming because I know that this guy needs to defend factory farming. So there's points in here where he's saying, I'm asking him about
I saw
factory.
one of those.
Yes, right. That's it. That was the bit I clipped.
You reminded me of the clip I saw.
Yeah. That's the bit I clipped. Or I'm asking him about factory farming, and he keeps going to say, "Well, I know that you don't believe in slaughter at all." And I said, "Well, I'm not talking about that part." And I
said, says they're treated well or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they don't suffer on factory farms. He goes, in most cases, no.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, so and you have to wonder, like, for me, I'm not even thinking at that point about the logic of it's like, okay, it's just obviously false. You just apply any like extremely basic methods of gathering data and you just realize like that's obviously not true. But for me, it's like, just the psychology becomes the interesting thing at that point. Like, well, and I guess you're a psychology person, so maybe that's always a part of the interesting thing too. But I like at that point, I just want to know, like, just what is even happening? Like, are they lying? That's one explanation. Or are they kind of like suppressing something and there's a lot of cognitive dissonance and they're not fully realizing because of that suppression and they're saying like weird shit because of that? Or is it like I just start like, because at that point when someone's saying something that ridiculous, animals don't suffer on factory or whatever he said, like, I mean, there's nothing interesting to talk about. Like, it's like if someone says like, you know, the fucking like the air doesn't exist or something. Like, there's context where that could be a good discussion. Like, maybe someone's got a whole new theory of like physics or something, and it like fundamentally changed. So that's one context. Or maybe another is we're just here to have a conversation about philosophy, and we want to talk about like kind of epistemically justifying the existence of the external world. Like, there's cases where these like things like that can be worth talking. But if in a normal conversation where the thing we're trying to resolve is just something like, you know, like, should I do X or Y, or like, is it like just something more mundane? Someone starts talking about the like, so someone starts questioning like the most basic assumptions ever. I mean, there's a point where it's just like, okay, I mean, do I want to have an argument with someone about whether animals suffer on factory farms? Like, it's like, okay, but like,
That is where I
there's-
left
I
that
guess
particular reductio. I thought, well, I said okay, and that was. I said, oh, we'll leave it there. We went on to talk further than that in the conversation, but yeah, it was that was enough for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because like, what's the goal of the conversation? Is the goal to persuade more people that you're correct? Because the thing is, once you say something like that, you're so far gone that saying it, like, you've used up a lot of your crazy points. Like, if you then
Right.
say something else that's really crazy, like, I don't even know if you gained that much ground by doing that, rather than maybe just going to another topic or something like that. So there's a point where it's like, from the perspective of persuading people, it becomes diminishing returns, because the portion of the population who agrees with what's being said by your interlocutor at this point is so small that you're like, you're quibbling over some very small percentage of the population that probably is like insane. So if they're actually like, yeah, and then from the perspective of maybe you're trying to persuade them, it's like, well, if they're far gone enough to say something like that, again, not from confusion, like they're informed, but they're in some state of like denial or something like that, like you're probably coming up against psychological mechanisms that are like just going to be painful to try to interact with. So it's kind of like, is like at that point, this is why sometimes, like, when I get to a certain point in a conversation, I just say like, okay, well, I mean, I don't have anything further to say. If you have any criticisms and you want to say anything, go for it. But like, I think basically at this point, the people who agree with me are going to agree with me, and the people who are going to agree with you are going to agree with you. There's nothing like further I could say. If that's your view, that, I mean, I think I've spelt out about as clearly as possible the things that I find unpalatable, or that I expect other people will find unpalatable about it.
Yeah. God, I've got to say, you ain't seen nothing yet in this conversation. You are going to hate this conversation.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, I'll try not to... I always say this and fail it. I'll try not to pause it every 5 seconds.
No,
but
feel
really...
free. I want to hear your thoughts.
Okay.
In any deliberate way doesn't make business sense.
Okay,
I mean,
this is a claim that we debate for a little while.
The concept that they would mistreat their animals in any deliberate way doesn't make business sense. I mean, fundamentally,
A weird fucking shift of topic to whether it's happening deliberately. We're not like, I mean, like, there's deliberate abuse that, like, there's sadistic workers, and maybe that environment makes people sadistic. Like, there's stuff like that, but no vegan is making the argument that, like, the chief goal of, like, animal agriculture companies is to cause suffering or so. Like, what's he arguing against right now? The idea is just that whatever their goals are, which I think we probably all agree on, they're making money primarily.
Yeah.
They maximizing for those goals, which they do, results in horrible treatment of animals.
Absolutely.
Right? So,
and
yeah,
as I
don't know
said
what
to him, I
he's
think it
arguing
makes.
against there.
I think it makes. Yeah, we talk about this particular claim for a little while. His claim is it doesn't make business sense for farmers to abuse animals. It's just so...
He said deliberately. Wait. He said something even
yes, okay.
weirder.
Yeah,
Listen.
That's true.
Listen.
the concept that they would mistreat their animals in any deliberate way doesn't make business sense.
Obviously, that's okay. Sorry, there's this thing it's in a sense crazier to say they don't mistreat at all, because adding deliberate is adding a further thing to it, which the more propositions you add, the less likely the thing becomes. So it is more work for it to show it's done deliberately. But you're not making the claim that it's happening deliberately. So he's putting a stronger claim on you than you're making. Like the thing you were just saying to me, that you're going to go on to presumably argue with him, but whether there is abuse or whether they're incentivized to abuse or something like that, that's unwinnable. But he's putting a further burden on you. He's framing your position like your position is that it's deliberate, and not deliberate in the sense of like small scale abuse by workers, like sadistic workers, stuff like that. He's talking about the general goal of the industry being to do abuse. And it's like no one's making that point. Their goal is to make money. Abuse happens because they're maximizing for making money and not for welfare.
Yeah, I mean, something could be well, for example, they're not putting pigs in cages accidentally, right? They are doing it deliberately. They're not doing it for the purpose of maximizing harm, but that's just sort of incidental on their way.
Yeah, but
to
it
their
depends
goal
what you mean yeah, okay. So it depends what you mean by deliberate, because when I hear him say deliberate, and you can have different sense of a term, and we can just make it clear the things we are and aren't saying. There is a sense of deliberate where it means something like that it is on their list of goals, like on the list of things that they're trying to do. One of them is abuse animals, and not as in a goal that is, maybe a proxy goal for something else, right? It's like if you just pulled the animal agriculture, write down the fundamental things you want to achieve, that like on the list of things there, one of them would be just causing animal suffering. And I don't think anyone holds that kind of position, that's
No.
like what
Yeah.
like that, right? And
Presumably
it kind of
not.
sounds like that. So I'm always careful if I see something that sounds a certain way, at least that's how it sounded to me, to be like, well, wait, that obviously no one's saying that, so hopefully that's not what you're arguing against. There's another sense of deliberate, which is what you're talking about, which is like, there's something which is not your primary goal, but which you consciously engage in to achieve your primary goal.
Right.
So in that sense, sure, there's deliberate suffering. Like they deliberately do a thing which they are aware will cause suffering, like the farrowing crates or whatever whatever example you were just going to use there. But if you gave them their perfect world, they would say like, well, no, the animal doesn't have to suffer. I just want the same amount of money coming in. Right, so
Exactly,
it's yes, there's it's like deliberation in the second order versus like the first order. Like, is it one of your first order goals, or is it a second order goal? And there's an implication when you say deliberate that it's like this is the thing they're trying to do. It can make it sound like it's one of their first order goals.
Fair enough. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And that's
So-
not your position. That would if you were to start arguing against that, you'd be taking on a weaker position. So it's like a framing I would want to avoid.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. So this is one of the things that I had seen this guy say on a previous podcast that I watched him to when I was preparing. And I thought at the time, like, that's just obviously bullshit. Like, the most abusive practices are going to be the most business efficient ones because, like you say, they're not doing it for fun, right? That to the extent that there are abusive practices, presumably people who work in these industries even think, well, look, that's regrettable to some extent, but it has to be done this way in order to maximize profitability or whatever, or they just sort of rationalize, in any case, I'm not sure if, so he does say deliberate here, and that's, I hear your ears pricking up for a weasel pathway, but I'm not sure if that's super relevant to the way that he's going to repeat the claim, but yeah, we talked about this thing about the business case for a little while. It's so interesting because I feel like he ends up making the business case that I'm talking about, and I'm just sort of nodding along going, well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, we'll see that. Yeah, my focusing on the little deliberate point is not to imply that that's like his main line of reasoning or what you guys are going to go on to talk about. It could just be a little thing that comes up in passing, but, it stood out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make business sense. I mean, fundamentally, farmers, it's not a hobby. Farming is a business, okay? And farmers
they do need to kill them.
I have no problem. Look, if you want to get fundamental to the fundamental issue, I have no problem with the fact that we kill animals and we consume them. We actually we domesticated them for that purpose.
Well, that's kind of,
and neither does,
okay,
I would say,
go on.
neither does 90%.
Another terrible argument. We did X in the past for such and such purpose, so that justifies doing that going forward? Like what?
Yeah.
Of the population. So if we want to actually go out and have a vote on it, then a democratic vote on should we be allowed to kill animals and eat them, then we're pretty clear what the vote is.
I just said that to push back on your claim that it doesn't make business sense to abuse the animals in any way. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's not true, though. That's not true. I mean, it makes total business sense to cram them in as small as possible, to raise them as cheaply as possible. That exactly makes business sense.
Yes, this is obviously true, what you're saying right now. It's not like business, maximizing for profit. Yeah, the way you said it a minute ago, like the most abusive things are going to be the most profit. Like, I mean, that's not true. Obviously, the most abusive thing would be to put them in some like kind of like torture chamber that like maximizes pain on every nerve. Like it's gonna be like
the most abusive things that you see in reality, though, right?
Yes, yeah. Of the things going on, the things you're seeing are the things that are the most profitable.
Right.
Yeah, but no, the point you're making right now is just obviously true. So yeah, I don't know what he's gonna do here.
Yeah.
No, you're putting a philosophical difference because the animals at the end are killed and eaten. Okay, I have no problem with that.
Well, that's a bit Weasley though, because
Yeah, already he's
it's
talking
not.
about the slaughter side already.
Yeah, which the thing is, like, yes, we can have an argument about whether it's wrong to just do the killing in isolation without all the suffering there. But you're in favor of factory farming, aren't you? So that's not. It's like he adds to your burden. Well, I mean, if my deliberate interpretation is right, it's like adding to your burden and then subtracting from his own burden. Like for him, like he's not going to justify factory farming or any of that. We're just going to talk in the abstract about killing. Now, I do
Right.
think that arguments in the abstract about killing, they certainly don't. I find those arguments totally disgusting and unpersuasive, and I think a lot of people do when you kind of combat them effectively. I think a lot of people go like, "What the fuck?" But you don't have to fight off that weaker footing. I mean, it's still strong footing, like don't kill. But you have a person here saying, not just kill, but like kill, torture, maximize fucking stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's what you have to argue for, buddy. Don't just make it about killing in the abstract.
That's exactly
neither
that was
does
exactly my
90%
sense, and
the world.
oh, whoops, yeah, that was exactly my sense, and that is very much the strategic undercurrent of this debate. Is I'm trying to always push it onto talking about factory farming, basically, and he's trying to always push it onto slaughter. So I do feel that factory farming, I mean, if you can, most people are going to say, look, I eat meat, but okay, I try and get high welfare, and we shouldn't be, most people are going to not really resist too hard that we shouldn't be doing factory farming. So when you get to talk to someone who like, his mortgage depends on defending factory farming, it's like, okay, we got to get the hook in here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Population.
I mean, it's
So-
it's logically possible, obviously, to be pro killing and anti factory farming. Right?
Right.
It's not like if he gets you to agree that killing is okay, not that you're gonna agree to that, then he's justified factory. We've just not touched the topic. So yeah, I mean, and it's not surprising, like, people who, like, it's the most indefensible thing ever. Like, it's just this giant fucking global holocaust. And it's like, it's just, if you describe it, it just sounds like the most evil thing ever. Like, yeah, we cut their fucking balls off and,
Right.
and like prod them with hot iron and keep them in little like, I mean, it sounds like fucking some like medieval torture or some shit.
Yeah.
Like, nobody can. No, like, only fucking psychopaths actually think when you describe factory farming, it's acceptable, right? So no shit, he like doesn't want to try to defend that and wants to try to make it about something else. But yeah, I would not let them do that. Sometimes vegans want to do the, it's all wrong, and I'm ready to defend even that it's wrong to kill something if there's no. And it's like, yeah, I mean, sure, like I agree with that. But that's not the best way to approach the discussion. Like, I think in the discussion, you want to have the strongest position you can. And the strongest position is not to fight over just the killing or I mean, focus obviously on the most egregious thing that they're trying to justify.
Yeah. Well,
So
glad
let's
to
be
hear you say
honest
that,
about
because that's where
you
it goes.
Want to go out and ask the question, do people object to the fact that we slaughter animals for consumption? Then 90% of the world's population have no problem with that.
And this is also
Yeah.
stupid. Like, what's he trying to do with it? Is this an appeal to popular? Like, this is why you kind of sometimes have to ask someone what point they're making instead of, because you don't disagree with that. Like, you agree that a lot of people will. I forget how he phrased it.
Yeah,
I mean, if you
90%
phrase it in
people
terms of
agree that
factory
it's
farm,
okay to slaughter animals for food or something like that.
yeah, and I mean, there's ways maybe if you ask them in terms of factory farming, they might not say that. But if you like look at their consumer behavior or something, it's like, yeah. You don't disagree with any of that, but what's he trying to imply when he says that? Is he implying that therefore it's acceptable? Well, then that seems hilarious. Like, what if most of the population supported fucking holocausting humans? So I don't like when people do the thing where they say an uncontroversial thing as if it's in conflict with anything that you're saying, and then you're in this position of like, what? I fight something that I don't disagree with,
Yeah.
or I let them imply something that's like totally ridiculous. So you have to like dig out the underlying bullshit. Of course, there's also questions about what you're trying to do in the context of the conversation. Like, have you been on some linear path? Is it a derail from that? But so I'm just talking kind of in the abstract, just handling that point in of itself. There might be reasons to not do that, but
I'm not gonna disagree with you on that point. I'm disagreeing
Okay.
on the point that there's
Okay,
no
so
business
Victoria.
case for abusing animals. I think there's
Okay,
a great
well,
business
let's look at
case
it.
for abusing animals.
No, not actually,
Yeah.
because if let's go back to the dairy example. Okay, we know that happy.
He always wants to keep going to dairy as well, which is going to be one of the lower proportion factory farming industries. I go to talk about pigs and farrowing crates and stuff like that. He keeps on going to dairy and feedlots and stuff because it is true that cows tend to be factory farmed at a lower rate than other animals. So he's always going to the strongest case from his view.
yeah, I mean, yeah. So that's revealing about someone's position. Like, if they're always instead of just accepting the empirical facts and then arguing from there, they're always trying to like put on like rose tinted glasses or like squint at the empirical facts and then start arguing about it. It's like, okay, like what? It should say something about how comfortable you are with your own position. if you feel like you have to like polish a turd before
Yes.
starting to defend it, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's yeah. You look kind of like a wise like Jedi master or something. Like you look like you're just totally ready to just annihilate whatever he says. See right there.
They produce good milk and they produce lots of it. Okay, and so the more time they spend in the paddock, drinking and eating. So farming is about that. The health.
Also, I mean, I don't know enough about, by which I mean like anything about this, but isn't dairy arguably one of the fucking stupidest things to make these kind of cases about? Because like don't we not need it? And well, obviously we don't need it, but don't we have like big fucking retarded like dairy warehouses and government subsidies and like all this bullshit? Like, do we, when you say they produce it and they produce a lot of it and they're good at it, it's like, yeah, but like why the fuck do we need so much of it? Do we have like artificial demand for it? Take that with a grain of salt, because I don't actually know how any of that stuff works, but I think there's some bullshit with dairy.
Yeah, there has been milk lakes and stuff like that in the past where they've kind of government surplus by it. Yeah, it's pretty grim.
Or I've heard things like there's somehow the government has to like subsidize this stuff, and then they have all this milk, but you can't keep the milk, so you have to make it into a storable form, so you make it into cheese, and then you have these like giant cheese warehouses that are costing like a shitload of money to keep like climate controlled and stuff. I have not checked that stuff, so I don't know how true that is, but that's the kind of stuff that I've heard. And if stuff like that is the case, then it's extra funny to be making arguments about how good cows are at making dairy, as if we like need
We need so
a bunch
much
of
more
fucking
of it.
dairy. It's like we need less dairy.
Yeah.
Healthier they are. So from a farmer's point of view,
The most
is they
productive
want
systems are going to be factory farms, right? That's the lowest cost per unit.
no, actually not. Again, please, by all means, give me the data that proves that. You know,
So I didn't. I felt like I should have interrupted him more in this conversation, looking back on it, because he goes on quite long spiels, and I'm doing, 20 seconds at a time. But of course, there's data on that point, right? If you get to the extent that there are welfare certifications that you can sign up to, and now, on paper at least, these products are produced to some higher standards than those products. These products are going to be more expensive than those products, right? The organic certified, the RSPCA certified, whatever, right? I know there's been a whole thing about the RSPCA certified, but to the extent that these standards mean anything and are enforced and do in fact reflect higher welfare standards, those products are going to be more expensive than the factory farmed ones. I mean, they just are. We've collected bits of data on this from supermarket websites, but it's trivial, really. You know that the organic ones are more expensive already.
Yeah, I mean, there's this kind of obvious, like, kind of mechanistic sort of point where it's just like, of course, big industry has, like, more efficient practices. They have a ton of money. They put it all into optimizing the fuck out of everything, fit as much as you can in the space, get the space as productive as possible. Like, that's just how big business tries to operate. So there's a kind of mechanistic case that I think it makes it seem pretty obvious what to expect there. But then, I mean, I guess there's also sort of like, I guess there's some I don't know if this is a right to call data. Well, I guess it's data of a sort. So there's like, in addition to that, there's like your actual experience, which is okay. I can like see that all of the things that have certifications, this kind of stuff comes with a higher price tag. So why would the price tag be higher? Well, presumably it's a reflection of what of the cost of producing the thing.
Right.
But then and this would obviously be the best thing to have. There might actually be like hard data about just like comparing this method versus that method, and like, you know, grams produced or
What price does the animal have to
like,
fetch to pay for that? Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, so that latter thing would be the best thing to have, but I do think even the shitty kind of like mechanistic stuff should give someone a pretty fucking obvious leaning. Like,
Right.
I mean, yeah. And also there's a burden weirdness here where you're both taking sides on it. Like, he's saying it's less suffering and you're saying it's more. So he has a burden too, right? So he should also, if he's going to ask for data, I mean, he just as well should be providing data, right? He's got a burden there also.
Oh, we've got, by the way, on the whole burden of proof thing, we won't see this part of the debate, but it was on the health stuff. You might have seen some of this stuff. I got some really good advice from Nick's server on this.
Oh yeah?
There's this burden of proof studies and the global burden of disease. Basically, they've done some sort of meta-analysis where they have got it to show that there's no significant health risks associated with red meat, or like they put it that there's only weak evidence in association for these things. And when you scratch a little bit into what that means, well, first of all, there's analogous meta-analyses which find only weak evidence for negative health effects of things like secondhand smoking and chewing tobacco, and like things which are widely and obviously taken to be unhealthy. And that's a sort of demonstration of how unreasonably high the bar is with this burden of proof methodology that they use. But the latest installment in that back and forth, somebody posted in my Discord server a systematic review of randomized control trials of the parachute, which found that since there had been no randomized control trials of the parachute, we don't have strong reason to believe in its effectiveness as a medical intervention. There's only been observational data, as this guy was arguing in the case of red meat. So I tagged him on this earlier on LinkedIn. It's sort of one of these parody papers, and we've had a bit of back and forth on that.
Yeah, I'd have to look at that. I mean, there's some of these interesting questions. Like, there's things that we don't have. Like, we have a meta-analysis on like gravity or something like that. Like, I mean, we know that gravity works. So I'm not sure. I have to think about exactly what the right way is to separate those things. It might just be something about like just knowing that like you have a model that has historically predicted things incredibly accurately, given you like a wide range of technology, like blah blah. Like, you could have a kind of case like that where maybe you don't have a study on the thing, like a study like about like but I mean, I'm sure there are various studies on gravity, so maybe that's not a good example. But the point is, you might have cases where you have a ton of kind of like surrounding information that gives you like an extremely strong leaning, but that's not in the form of like a randomized control trial or something like that. You're just like, look, I mean, I know that the physicists use this thing to build all of that stuff, and all that stuff works. I know they can make predictions, and those predictions come out super accurate, and like just having a general understanding that's the case is enough for me to trust this principle. Yeah, there's probably some good way to like separate out some of those categories and talk about like different epistemic standards in different contexts, and like why we have them or not. But yeah, part of what can, so like you pointed out, you know, he's got this ridiculous sort of epistemic standard in this case. I think that part of why consistency arguments can be useful is that you don't have to get into like okay, what's the whole grounding for this? How does this whole work? How do we actually optimize this? Like, often you can do something that's more modest, which is like, okay, I'm not going to set out to like do all this heavy philosophical or empirical work. I'm just going to notice the fact that this person is employing two really different um sort of epistemologies or epistemological standards, and they're going to, and if I press them to be consistent, they would need to either move in the vegan direction or whatever direction it is you're concerned with in that conversation, or they'd have to like give up this thing that there's no fucking way they're gonna give up, because that's like how they think about all these like commonplace things. Then you can kind of just argue them into, or try to argue them into a consistent standard without having to take on as much of a burden. I'm not saying that burden isn't worth taking on, but it's often like, hey, you can get a lot of the work done just by making them be consistent about this thing.
Absolutely.
And yeah, with studies and smoking and stuff like that, this is one of these things where philosophy is really important. So there's like, I have some friends who do a lot of the empirical debating and stuff, like Avi and Nick. And the thing is, in the empirical debate spaces, there's a lot of people who are really good within their domain, like whatever that might be. Maybe it's like some kind of food science, or maybe it's fucking, I don't know, biology or something. But they don't have a good handle on philosophy. And this is like very common. Like, you can have someone who's, a great mathematician who doesn't really have views about philosophy of math. Like, what's the ontology of mathematical objects? And maybe they say something about that, but they might not really have views on that. They might just be kind of like doing math, like interested in math problems. Or likewise, you talk to like a biologist, they're like doing biology problems. They might not have thought about fundamental biological philosophy kind of questions. So yeah, you get in the empirical debate space a lot of people who are very good within this like specialized kind of empirical range, but who can get actually obliterated on the stuff that they're best at by just going one level deeper and talking about philosophy. And you often get crazy cope and stuff here, because these people are experts, often like they'll have a PhD or something like that, and they'll get destroyed by someone with like no credentials, just some kind of fucking online lunatic. And then the PhD person like can't admit it, can't accept it, they're coping forever. And really it's like, you just don't understand. There is a thing that they're attacking there, not well, and if you know how to defend, you'd be able to easily defend, but they're attacking a thing that you just have no defense against, because you've done biology. You haven't really done philosophy of biology, so you don't have a good philosophical grounding for the kind of stuff you're talking about. So for the empirical debates, it's important to actually know the philosophical stuff, because you'll get things like the epistemic standard stuff, where like you have someone who's applying one epistemic standard in the context of like smoking or Advil or something like that, and then they're applying a totally different epistemic standard in the context of like red meat or whatever their little pet fucking thing is that they like. And this is the thing. The people who have the training and the expertise, they often look at those people saying things that are insane, right? Saying like, oh, red meat's good for you. And they're like, that person is such a fucking idiot. Like, don't they know like this meta-analysis, this method, these findings, this blah, blah, blah. But if they were to actually debate that person, they'd probably lose, because what would happen if they debated them is they would find out that that person is actually, in some case, sometimes this isn't the case, sometimes the person's a failure on all fronts, but they're oftentimes not even failing at the empirical level. They're doing the empirical stuff fine. They're like, they're applying like some like standard tools you'd learn in a university. They're doing blah, blah, blah. But their starting assumptions are fucked, or are like inconsistent. Like, they start with these assumptions in this case and these assumptions in that case, and reach different conclusions. So the thing you need there is not more empirical knowledge about the domain. It's you have to get down to that base level and go like, oh wait, this is like a philosophical thing. Like, wait, you think anecdotes have more value than RCTs in this context, but like not in that context. And like, what's the basis for the different epistemic standard? Right? And then you're into a kind of a philosophical conversation. And basically if you can do that.
What happened in that part of the debate, by the way.
Okay, yeah, good. Because because then basically what happens is if you do know how to run the philosophical side, then basically what you get to is like, okay, yeah, I mean, I'm not taking issue with their empirical thing. I'm criticizing their foundations. And basically we've gotten to this point that they just have these inconsistent starting points, and other people just don't want to start from inconsistent starting points, and you can't really give them any motivation to do that. So you just kind of drive them into the dirt like that, and then there's just, it's like, who's persuaded by what they're saying anymore? Like, these people aren't, no one else is starting by carving out some like really crazy double standard for
Right.
for like red meat or something like that. So, you know, you gotta show us from our point of view what the reason would be to do that. And if it bottoms out at, well, I just do that, well, then we've hit the level where you're not persuading people. So but you can't get there if you don't know how to do the philosophy part.
Yeah.
So it's just, I always make this point, but it's why it's important to not just be one of these like higher level people, like with STEM. Sometimes get called like STEM lords, but you have similar things in non-STEM. Like, you don't want to be one of those people generally, but especially if you're doing debates, for the reason I just kind of explained.
Yeah, you'll get caught with your pants down if you don't have the philosophical grounding. Well, that's exactly what happened.
Yes, by idiots who don't actually know the philosophy, but are nonetheless attacking you about philosophy when you don't know about it either. So it turns what could be a just total fucking destruction into a crapshoot.
Right. I mean, in the part of the discussion, so there's essentially what happened where he has his meta-analysis, and I said, well, look, if you use that same methodology, we've got one over here saying that secondhand smoking and chewing tobacco, there's similarly weak standards of evidence. And there's a really interesting thing in that set of papers where basically they've applied this framework. They've said there's some evidence for health effects of secondhand smoking, but it's only of the form weak evidence, and that means that it's from observational studies only as opposed to RCTs or something like that. It's 3-star evidence instead of 4-star evidence. They have this whole star system. And so they've got like the same level of evidence for harm for secondhand smoking as they've got for red meat. And then the papers just conclude different things based on the same results. So he is kind of citing the papers and giving accurate quotations that one, in fact, does say there's weak evidence in the case of red meat, and therefore we should hesitate to recommend limitations on it or something like that. And the other says, despite the weak underlying evidence, this review reaffirms the health case against secondhand smoking, and governments should enforce blah blah blah. Right. So they have the same letter, and they just have different conclusions. And when afterwards, so I brought this up in the debate, and he didn't know about it, and I was like, okay, well, that's kind of a dub. But he afterwards, we were commenting about it on LinkedIn, and he copy pasted a part of the abstract from the secondhand smoking one, and he was saying, oh look, you're actually misrepresenting this. That paper did say that governments should recommend limitations and all the rest of it. But he started the copy paste from like halfway through a sentence, and when I went and looked at the sentence that he had copied, he had left out "despite the weak underlying evidence," comma, and he had just started from the point that said, "Our review reaffirms secondhand smoking." And that's the most like caught in the act moment. I was like, mate, you've literally just made my point by the part of the quote that you omitted. It's the same level of evidence, but they're giving different conclusions.
He was trying. Sorry, I'm not sure I totally follow. He was trying to say it wasn't weak though, and the paper said weak, and he just ignored the word weak.
Yeah,
the very same sentence as he quoted.
Yeah, he quoted half a sentence from the abstract, of which the second half was like, our paper reaffirms the health case against secondhand smoke. But the first half was despite the weak underlying evidence, and the first half that he omitted was the part that was making my point that there's weak underlying evidence to the same extent in the case of red meat, which he was being inconsistent on.
I feel like, yeah, the people
anyway,
we have to
there's a whole
with,
empirical bit that's not about this animal stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, the people we have to argue with just do such silly things that, like, I find it hard to believe anyone would watch Karnas argue and not just be immediately motivated to go vegan. Like, I've come to the view that I say it kind of tongue-in-cheek, but I also might be serious or might actually believe something kind of close to this. Like, I think the strongest reason to be vegan is obviously the animals. However you want to frame it, suffering, rights, whatever. The way we're treating animals is just totally fucking evil. But if there's a solid candidate for like second best reason to be vegan is not being cringe. And if you just watch Holocaust supporters debate, and you're just going to realize this kind of infinite vortex of cringe. And I just think like people who I don't get how you could be someone who's like I would find it motivate. Like, I guess it's weird for me because I would fixate on the animal thing and get primarily motivated by that. But like, even if I weren't primarily motivated by that, I would be like, who the fuck would want to be associated with these people? Who would want to be seen like some kind of fucking fool like this? Like, I mean, you hear Karnas talking about fucking barbecuing their grandma, or factory farming doesn't cause suffering, or ancestors, or this. It's like, it's got to be like one of the stupidest fucking cringiest positions that someone could ever hold. Like when someone talking about someone explicitly holding a carnet, like your team gets regularly reductioed into fucking supporting like genociding people and stuff. Like, you just are the biggest fucking debate failure humiliations I've ever seen. So, I mean, yeah, I feel like a good reason to be vegan if you see these debates is just not to be just and I've heard people have gone vegan for this. I've seen people, like multiple people actually, say I came to the server and I saw just how retarded, this is when we used to have lots of debates here, just how retarded Karnas are in debates, and I realized I have to go vegan because I don't want to be associated with those people. So yeah, cringe is definitely up there and should be listed as like a reason to not be a Karnist.
True. Well, let's hope we can get some more out of this
Yeah, I mean, I guess we spent some time with Syncplay at the start, but we've been watching for like an hour, and we're minus Syncplay time or whatever, and we barely got into like any of this. So this is one of those videos where it's like just everything he's saying, and like the whole, like, it's just, I mean, there's like a million things I could say. It's like watching a Cosmic Skeptic video. Like, there's just so much silliness going on. You could pause it every like 2 seconds. Maybe I'll try to pause it a bit.
Reality is, farming systems vary.
Yeah, and you know, as ever, let me know when you want to wrap up. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Enormously around the world.
Yeah, no worries.
Breeds of animals, the way you do them, the way you feed them, we discussed already on that. Okay? The reason we have, in Australia, we have a certain quantity level of our cattle are finished in feedlots. Why are they done it that way? Because the market for those animals determines a particular specification, like the Japanese market. They like a highly marbled piece of meat. It's not because it's cheaper. It's actually more expensive. It's more expensive to keep an animal and feed it intensive like that. But the reason you do it is because you've got a market that pays you well for it.
So yeah,
so it's not abuse of animals. I mean, Chris, you look at Wagyu cattle. I mean,
it's not abuse of animals. Fucking wild claim right there.
You've never got a more pampered animal in your life.
Okay, look, again, we can go to like the examples of the very high welfare animals. There are factory farms. The majority of meats come from factory farms. The majority of animals are on factory farms. Why are they doing it if not for economic efficiency? Are they wrong? Have they got their business plan wrong? It doesn't make sense to abuse the animals.
Why is poultry well overtaken red meat? It's because of cost. People have demanded cheaper products.
Right, because
I mean, we know
I don't like that he's not answering you and is just kind of riffing.
the animals on factory farms was cheaper and made business sense.
No, because they wanted to pay a certain price. Okay, so you match to the clients. I mean, as I said, these are economic systems.
Okay, but
you're equating.
This is where I feel like he's just describing a business case to make a lower price, to match to the clients. They want to pay a certain cost. Like, can he not hear himself?
Factory farm with abuse. I would disagree with you on that.
Oh, really?
Do we see abuse in of animals? Yes, we do see it, and when we see it, it's heavily judged.
Yeah, but the normal treatment is abuse. Like, why don't we just sit here and talk about is it abuse to put a human in a cage and keep them there for their whole life? Just that point alone. Presumably, yes. What's the difference with animals? Let's go through that. Like, I'm tired of this guy talking about only the cases that are not standard practice, or where someone's violating the laws or whatever as abuse. Like, abuse isn't determined by the law or the regulations of some factory farmers. Like, that's not what I fucking mean by abuse.
Yeah, you'll see in a minute when I say
and what kind of
we can talk about even legal practices. I said, well, you'll see in a second. I said, like, keeping animals in a cage, and he goes, "That's not illegal." I was like, "I know, but it could still be wrong." And it was like that was a novel idea to him.
What kind of
Like,
things
really?
would you classify as abuse if not factory farm? So we're talking about keeping animals in cages for weeks on end, being unable to move and express their natural behaviours, being unable to get medical attention. Is that
Again,
not abuse
again,
in your mind? A lot of them
Again, there is
dying
no
just straight
point-
up from.
If you look at say feedlots,
He's not answering when you ask questions. He just starts riffing.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of annoying. So this is part, like, I always have this impulse to just cut in and be like, wait, I asked something. Like, we're supposed to be talking to each other. I'm not trying to talk to, like, a radio. Like, if I wanted to not have the things responded to that I'm saying, and just hear someone else talk, like, I could listen to radio or watch a YouTube video or something. Like, I'm asking you something. So how about talk to the person who's right here speaking to you?
Yeah, because again, if we look at feedlots, it's like, oh, you're just going to say the same thing you said a minute ago, aren't you?
then the animals get more attention. The last thing you need in a feedlot is a sick animal. So in Australian feedlots, they're largely outside, but they're confined. And we actually have people who ride those pens every day on horseback, ride around gently with looking. As soon as they see an animal that looks in any way suspicious, it's pulled out and put in a separate.
This guy is trying to paint, like, the picture on the cover of like some dairy product or something,
Yeah.
but like with words instead of some like misleading image or something like that. Like, oh, let's just focus on the actual massive suffering.
put
They
in a
ride
separate
around on horseback. They gently look. He said they gently look at the cattle.
Like, I mean, look, I'm sure that there's places where there's systems that, like, I don't know all about food production. I know that there's stuff like kind of ranching. I know that there are cases where you have animals that are out in fields and grazing, and you have people who ride around on horses and like manage them and stuff like that. Like, why are we talking about this right now? What, like, I thought that, like, didn't you what wasn't the topic whether factory farming is abuse? Like, I guess I don't remember.
Yeah, that's
exactly
what
where
we're
it
on at this
started,
point.
but
Whether
I just-
factory farming is abuse. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Yeah.
it's like, why is it like, you know, you talk about factory farming as abuse, and then the response is like, brave noble cowboy
Right.
gallops through the horizon, wind in his hair,
Yeah.
as he gazes over his field of, like, it's like, can we just not, like, we really don't need that.
So the idea that we pen these animals up and ignore them is actually quite the reverse.
You didn't say that. You didn't say pin animals up, and it, I mean, we don't ignore them in the sense of we feed them and make sure they're not in any kind of state that's damaging to our profits. Like, they're
Right.
so fucked up that they will be like rejected at the slaughterhouse or something like that. So I don't know if you're arguing that we ignore them, and I don't think you're arguing that we put everything in a pen. Like, I mean, it seems like he always is weakening what he has to argue for. He's like painting the mystic cowboy galloping in the horizon, and then he's always strengthening what you have to argue, like making it a harder point to argue for. Like, oh, that it's all deliberate, or that what was the one he
It's
just said,
all
that
slaughter
that
rather
like
than factory
pins,
farming.
they're all in pins or something. Like,
Right.
you're not saying they're all in pins. Like, or like, obviously you understand that there's some kind of spectrum of treatment out. Like, so it just seems like, and I mean, I could be wrong about some of these, but the general impression I'm getting is one of like, you trying to kind of engage on a particular thing, and him always going like, well, let me like lighten the load on my end, and let me like increase the load on your end, and now let's talk about it. It's like,
Pretty
wait,
much.
why are we doing that? Why can't you just answer the exact thing I asked about and just focus on that? Like, do you think putting a fucking animal in a cage its whole life and taking it out only to slit its throat. Do you think that's bad? Well, the mystic cowboy galloping in the horizon, and they're not all in pit. It's like, wait, that's not what I fucking asked you, dude.
Mm.
There's
Animals
again, you're
have
kind of
super
going
sense.
to like high welfare instances. I'm talking
No,
about
this
the
is
majority
standard
of animals which
I think you're doing a good job by bringing it back to the point. And you
Thanks.
said he goes on forever, and you just say a few things, and that's bad. I actually don't think that's bad. I think that can be good if it's clear enough. If you get good at making it clear that you're just asking the same thing, and that person just keeps not answering, then I think it can actually. I mean, you don't want them going on forever, but it actually looks bad for them if every time. Okay,
Yeah, you're
this is
getting
a
them to
thing
weasel
that
around the point.
exactly. That's right. Yeah, like. And it's like, what creates the most clear image of them weaseling?
Yeah.
Well, it's you saying the same thing in I've said this to you
This is
before, I think,
exactly what
but
you said
as
to me last month.
similar,
Yeah.
yeah, say it as quickly as possible, not like a little, but as in like as few words as possible, as simple words as possible. And if you're doing that fairly, which I'll talk about that in a second, then it will create this. It makes it very obvious that what's happening is you're just trying to get a particular thing answered, and that person keeps riffing off in different directions to avoid answering it. Now, that advice has to be taken with a grain of salt, because if you misfire with that, you will be the douche in the debate. Like if you're like insisting that they answer something, and you keep saying the same thing, and they're saying if you're fucking up when you do that, then you're being unjustifiably kind of rigid and unfair, actually, and you'll look like the bad person. But so it's one of those techniques that like you have to understand what you're doing to wield it properly, or else you run some risk of a backfire. But if you're good at if you have a clear understanding of what you're trying to ask, and you're being honest is important. You're not trying to optics the person, because like optics are one of those things you just have to trust will occur naturally if you operate honestly and with good intentions.
Have good positions. Yeah.
I there's some optical things that are worth thinking about explicitly or debugging, but generally speaking, people pick up on intentions, and if you have good, clear intentions, the optics will, for the most part, work out pretty much fine. So let me just think. There's a little further point I was going to make there. So with just let me think for a second.
It was about asking the same question and when it can be good or bad.
Well, I was pointing out that there's an optical risk that one runs. I was pointing out how to mitigate that risk without really having to explicitly think it through. I don't exactly remember, but like I guess the just the sum up of the kind of the main thing there is that what you're doing is good because you're saying things that are short and clear and concise and keeping the other person on point. And I think working on honing that would probably be a good kind of. I think that would be a good way to approach debate. I don't think enough people approach debate like that, and that's how I like to see debate approached, with an emphasis on like being linear.
Yeah.
1 point at a time. Finish that point. Move to next point.
Yeah, absolutely.
you're on factory farm.
You're making the assumption that a factory farm is an abuse. I would not.
Presumably it's not an assumption. That's the thing in question. That's the fucking debate proposition, basically, and you're arguing for it. That's not an assumption. That's the thing you're making a case for, is it not?
Sorry, yeah. The animals suffer on factory.
Wait, sorry. I think I might have just confused myself. Actually, sorry. No. Sorry, I think what I just said is wrong. But sorry, you go ahead. Yeah.
I'm just laughing because in the version of the video that you'll have, I've now done a little skip. But on the version of the video that I've got, which I uploaded individually, which I uploaded originally and subsequently cut a 2-second bit out of, I do a really loud burp. And I muted it on the Google Meet, but I didn't mute it in OBS, and then I uploaded and I bloody posted it on my LinkedIn, and I was like, that's annoying. So we might be like 2 seconds out of sync now, but that's okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see. That's probably why we got the file size difference thing.
Okay.
Not agree with that at all. And if you made the comment that it's abuse because they don't get medicated, well, they do. Same.
Okay, I'm confused. You're not saying abuse because they don't get medicated. You're not. That's not what you said. But you didn't. Okay, sorry. I think I said this point wrong. It's not. It's not that the thing being argued about is whether factory farming is abuse. But you didn't say, like, what did he? Let me just rewind for a second.
You know, I would not agree with that at all. And if you made the farm,
Like high welfare instances, I'm talking
No,
about
this
the
is
majority
standard
of animals
practice.
which are on factory farms.
you're making the assumption that a factory farm is an abuse.
I don't think you're making the assumption that a factory farm is inherently abusive. Presumably you think, I don't know if the assumption is the right word to use, but the thing that's I don't like there is presumably you're talking about the things that are actually occurring on a factory farm. Like it's not just like factory farm inherently bad. Like there's some theoretical way to do that right. Like every being is like, they die natural deaths. Their reality is them being simulated in like the fucking Matrix or something, having like really good, like there's some way to have a high welfare factory farm. It's
Right.
not. It's your problem is obviously with the actual way that this farming is occurring. Typically, like you talk about things like standard practice, like you're talking about the kind of abuses that are happening on the farm, and you're not just saying the farm is inherently the abuse, and you're also not saying. You're also not doing what he's doing, which is only calling the things that are violations of procedure abuse. You're just calling the things that, you know, we would consider abuse if they were done to humans, or roughly something like that. You're considering those things abuse.
Well, the things I said were keeping animals in cages for weeks on end, being unable to move and express their natural behaviours, and being unable to get medical treatment. In each case, I'm thinking about pigs, and he's going to talk about feedlots and cows get medical treatment, stuff like this. Like I'm sure there are medical procedures that happen on farms, right? But there are clearly many medical issues which go neglected, particularly in the case of factory farms. Not even neglected; they're not even detected. They're not even looked for. I mean, they're inflicted,
Forms of
right? In
abuse.
some cases.
Or you're saying there's forms of abuse that aren't looked for?
Well, medical attention is the thing that I said. Unable to get medical attention,
Oh.
which I guess could be pretty broad, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, I would not agree with that at all. And if you made the comment that it's abuse because they don't get medicated, well, they do. Same as in a dairy. Any animal, and remember,
There's
in
an-
dairy we see the cows twice a day.
I'm
And we
surprised
have-
you're resisting me on this. Okay, go on.
Well, I'm not, because I actually spend a lot of time out on farms. So the difference I find sometimes online when I'm debating with people who want.
yeah, now he's doing the standard posturing as if you have no idea of what's going on. He's got his feet on the ground. This, like, I just hate Karnas. It's just such a disgusting mental space to be in. Like, this guy's spewed like all these excuses. He can't answer like direct questions that you're asking. He keeps trying to lighten his own burden. He keeps trying to increase your burden. It's like just and what's the one he's doing right now? I already forgot. Sorry, I smoked weed earlier.
Difference I find sometimes online.
Oh, and now he's doing the posturing one. Yeah, right. Now he's doing the posturing one where, oh, you don't have, you know, your feet on the ground. You're not
That's exactly
smelling
what
the
he's doing.
fresh fucking feces of the farm. Like, you don't know. Yeah, it's like when people get like this with me, I get very like I get very frustrated and I always with someone like this end up being like, look, would it be wrong if I were to put you in a cage for your entire life, chop off your testicles, brand you, pull out your teeth, and then, you know, steal all your children away, or whatever the fuck exactly happens, and then at the end of all that, hang you upside down and slit your throat? And he would waffle, and I would just cut in, and I'd just say, no, stop, 1 second. Just let's try to stay on the same page here, right? So the question I just asked you, what's the answer to that question? And if I could get an answer to that, then I would move to the animal case and be like, okay, same thing with animals, but that's not problematic, right? No, okay. I mean, he'd probably try to weasel more, but with me, it would be this constant thing of like getting the image clearly focused. Like, okay, we got the first point, which is not okay for humans. Now the second point for animals, none of this waffling, no cowboys, no bullshit. Same behavior, okay for animals, right? And then once you get both points, then boom, it's just NTT, and then you're just into running reductios. I don't like the when I hear someone trying all these dishonest strategies and posturing and waffling, that's when I get more frustrated and start going, okay, time to just like sort of make it obvious this person has a ridiculous position.
Yeah.
When I'm debating with people who want to tell us how to farm. Okay, who want to tell farmers how to farm. They've never been on a farm. Okay, they make an assumption. They say, "Oh, factory farm."
It's also a total like, you just made an assumption, right? I knew he was fucking around with that word assumption. I don't like that word. Like, obviously you have reasons that you think it's bad, right? It's not a fucking assumption. You've seen footage of what happens on the farms. You've probably read welfare. Like, I don't know exactly what you've done, but you've obviously seen data similar to the data the rest of us have seen.
Yeah.
Not a baseless, like, makes it sound like it's just some weird ideological, like you're like a pre-sup or something.
He says factory farm's bad here.
I'm bad. It's not actually correct. That's all my statement I'm making.
Okay, so in terms of the animal suffering, listen, I don't think that we're. Do you disagree with me that
I like that you keep asking the same thing. This is very good because he keeps waffling and you keep asking the same thing because you're not getting an answer.
there is farm animal abuse and suffering occurring on factory farms? Are you disagreeing with that part?
What I say is
That's not a fucking answer. Again,
Right.
like I didn't ask you why we have regulation. I asked, is there abuse? Or
Yeah, you know already what I was going to say. Oh, you were literally 2 seconds ahead of me. Okay. I was like, how do you know what
that's
it's
why we have regulation. Where there is abuse,
Yeah.
it is not tolerated.
Wow.
So, you know,
But just
if
even
you're-
be it things which are legal, right? Being in a cage for weeks on end, be it like
there's nothing illegal with putting an animal in a cage.
I
and
understand
feeding
that,
it.
yeah, but it could still be
feeding
wrong.
it,
It could still
yes.
make the animal suffer.
Well, that's your opinion, okay? Justin,
I hate this also. So first of all, like, I mean, okay, obviously there's a legality morality divide. To deny that, you just have to be insanely confused. And that's your position. That's not most people's position. Well, wait a second here. Why are we talking about the like unreflective position of like most people who don't fucking like they haven't like thought
Right.
about this kind of stuff? Like in my experience, when you actually make people aware of this, basically everybody is against it. There's a big portion of the population that's mentally pathetic and weak and disgusting, and those people won't change but are against it. There's nobody who wants this to happen basically at all, except a very small group of like actual psychopaths.
Mhm.
Even most carnists, they're weak and pathetic, but they don't actually like that this stuff happens.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I don't like. Let me just see. Here's phrasing again.
Yeah, but it could still be
Feeding
wrong.
it-
It could still make the animals.
Yeah, he's like phrasing it like everyone has had time to think this through and they've agreed with it. Like, that's not what's happened. There's a fucking default view that society has like fallen into because we evolved out of things that didn't even have society, and we have all sorts of crazy legacy systems and bullshit, and there's things that are around just because of like inertia, and there's lots of things that are not optimal. Like, there's tons of weird fucking inheritances from the past. Like, it's obnoxious that he's framing it like society has had a thorough debate about this.
Yeah.
They've come to a conclusion. Okay, you're on the fringe here. It's like, wait, no. Think of the person who said that to a slavery abolitionist, right? That person was being a retard, right? It was everyone. We basically all, at least here in Canada and similar nations, we have all rejected slavery, right? There was a point where someone could have postured in the same way, and the right response from the slavery abolitionist would have been like, same thing as I'm saying right now. I mean, they wouldn't have had maybe they wouldn't have had a historic example like slavery to appeal to.
Mhm.
I don't know enough about history. Maybe there is some stuff there, but same thing, right? They would have just been like, yeah, look, I mean, most people haven't like thought a lot about this as like a historical inheritance. Like, that's not a reason to think that after reflection and consideration, most people would agree with you, and you get to posture like I'm some fucking lunatic. I might have the view that basically everyone would agree with if they were to hear it all through, right? So it's kind of this like, it's like an appeal to something that's worthless, basically. Like, why the fuck would I care about that? And why does that make you feel justified?
Yeah, and what you're about to see, we do polling on these kind of topics. This is what I do IRL,
Right.
and I do actually have polling
Right.
data showing, between 70 and 95% of people saying that common farming practices are unacceptable, and in particular cages. That's
Right.
one of the most you get. 96%. I think we've got pigs in cages saying that's wrong. 96%. You don't
Right.
get that much agreement on anything.
Right. So he's like stepping on the landmine, basically.
Right.
Because this is like where. So this is the opposite of what I was talking about earlier, when you have someone who's got like domain expertise and then you drag them out of their domain into philosophy, because philosophy is underneath everything. All domains make certain philosophical assumptions.
Mhm.
And then you like wallop them on something they don't know about. The opposite is falling into the trap of arguing with the expert about the thing they're an expert about. So
Right.
if you're like some guy who like goes out and conducts studies or like pores over this research or whatever exactly it is that your rules cause you to do or whatever, that's like the last area that you want to stumble into in a debate. So yeah, that's good. And yeah, that level of alignment, 96%, like it's funny because there's not many things that are like that's similar territory, I would think, to things like that. I mean, what percentage of the population thinks that like
Like flat
smoking
Earth,
is
for
bad
example.
for you or
Yeah,
something?
yeah.
Yes, yeah, right. Like it's I would expect similar numbers, right? So yeah, it's funny he's framing you on the fringe, but he's actually on the radical fringe. It's just he's kind of blurring the lines of who's what exactly is being argued for, and it's maybe that picture isn't obvious to everyone, but it seems like he's the one with the fringe position if he actually thinks most people would really be supportive of this. Well, yeah. Yeah, so it depends how you frame it. There's so much weasel room in how you frame it. Like, are you looking at people's like unreflective preferences? Are you just looking at their consumer choices, or are you looking at the kind of thing that they would ideally want if you actually present them with relevant facts and ask them? Which is the thing I would suggest is like more important here, probably.
Well, that's exactly it. Yeah, he takes it that 90% of people eat meat. And therefore they must all endorse everything that goes on to produce it, right? Whereas in fact the reality is they just haven't thought about it for the most part.
Yeah, like you can weasel around with endorse. Like if endorse just means you accept that it happens and are willing to cause it to happen, in that sense you endorse it. But in the sense of you view it as bad, you say you wish it would not happen, you blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And there's probably, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a lot of people who would say that they would actually personally abstain from these products if they were a stronger person. In fact, there are people who say that I would be vegan, but it's too hard. That's actually
Definitely.
a common thing.
Yeah, that's common.
So yeah, yeah, there's a lot of people who there's actually a clear contrast where it's like, okay, the consumer behavior is actually the opposite of what they say they would ideally do, right? They just are weak and suck, and in some cases acknowledge that.
Right.
Well, that's your opinion, okay? It doesn't happen to be the majority of people's opinions.
In fact, the majority of people do agree that putting them in cages is wrong. I've got some survey data on that. Yeah.
In some circumstances, yes. And we're seeing, particularly for egg laying, okay? So we're seeing free range and things like that. So there are changes, but the reality is no one's backing off wanting cheaper poultry. I mean, the cheapness of poultry, which has led, in America, they eat twice as much poultry as they do beef. Okay, that's not just chickens, that's turkeys, obviously, 4th of July, etc. But that's
turkeys on 4th of July, a classic.
I mean,
I'm missing something there. What? I don't get the 4th of July reference.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's an Australian guy and he knows about turkey on Thanksgiving and he knows about 4th of July and he's just kind of conflated the two.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I see.
I mean, farmers, it's an economic model. You try to give the customer what they want, and the customer wants a particular product. They want to make sure it's.
I hate the what's the opposite of making something what is it when objectification maybe? I hate the way that I don't like this language like product and the like total lack of emphasis on the fact that this is a conscious being. Like I'm not saying that there's never a case where that kind of talk is appropriate, but I just feel like
We're talking about
you know, we're
suffering on
talking
factory
about-
farms.
yeah, so it's like it's not helpful in the conversation to just like sort of ignore the core dimension of what we're talking about and just talk about it like it's the same as like a widget or something like
Right.
that. Like kind of missing the it's just yeah, it makes it's hard to talk like that because like we have to get on the same point of like thinking about the thing that is the ethical concern. Like I'm not viewing that as a product. I'm viewing that as a being, and we're talking about what's right or wrong to do to those beings. And we don't look at other beings and go, oh, well, someone wants to use them as a product for this thing, so blah blah blah. We go, no, but that's a sentient being and they have interests and stuff like that, and we don't get to treat them that kind of way. So it's kind of like it's like inserting language that takes us out of the frame of mind that we should be in for a conversation like this. So yeah, I just don't like it because it's just a way to distance yourself to not like so much of what Carnists do is hope basically. It's like it's a way like they're trying to create these like when they make fun of vegans, that's usually because they're weak-minded people and they need for their environment to reaffirm their identity because vegans make them feel self-conscious.
Absolutely.
So, you know, they insult the vegan in order to hear other people laugh with them, which reaffirms their own identity and makes them feel less cognitive. Like that's like, I mean, obviously it's there. You could make a point like it's mean to the vegan. It's not really thinking about but I mean, again, just on the cringe topic, it's just weak. Like, just imagine how weak and pathetic of a person you have to be to do a behavior like that, right? Or the psychological distancing, always using words like product, always abstracting yourself out of it and trying to, or some people try to make it a complicated, abstract, philosophical thing without thinking at all about the actual, like, all of these things, I mean, I don't know. Some people think they have an elaborate view and that it's all intricate and what, but I mean, I just see right through it. I'm just like, oh, you're just pathetic. Like it's just some way to avoid actually really empathizing with that being or trying to empathize with that being. So yeah, I mean, again, this just connects to the point for me of like, a lot of us, like, look, a lot of the best quality humans out there have an ability to perceive quality in others, right? Like, if you're you know a moral person who's spent a lot of time building skills and you know working on themselves or just all the things that we standardly think like make someone kind of an impressive person or a good person, not good in the moral sense there, but like you know those people are going to they're going to have when you do all these things you can perceive when others are doing them or not, right? Like if you overcome certain kinds of cognitive dissonance and you get through it and now can see it clearly, it's obvious to you when someone else hasn't achieved that, right?
Yes.
No matter how convincing they think their front is, it's not convincing to you. It's like when Carnists think they're clever when they say like, oh, but like what about our canine teeth, and they don't realize like you realize millions of people have said that, right? Like, this, like sometimes you see them think that they come up with something new, and it's like you realize you just, from my perspective, it's pathetic. Like you just, like, I mean, that's just some default pathway that like every other person fucking stumbles into. Totally uninteresting, and to end up there just means you're motivated in that same kind of way as all those people to like sort of avoid engaging. So I want to say also on the cringe point that basically the high quality people can perceive other people who are high quality, right? Because you have to do things to sort of become a high quality person. You can tell when someone else hasn't done those things. And when you are one of these disgusting Holocaust supporting piece of shit and you do things like you can't meet a topic honestly emotionally, and you always try to minimize or not actually describe it accurately, or you always try to mislead about what the other person's position is, or just blah blah blah, you always use the product language because obviously you're not trying to really like empathize or engage with the being. Like, yeah, we can, of course, like animal suffering, there's tons of points to be made about that. That's the main point. There's all sorts of stuff to be said. But one point that I just want to make is just a new point we should introduce to the discourse. You're just cringe, right? You're the kind of like, I mean, what kind of woman would want to be with a man like that, for instance? Like if you have a woman who's got that kind of quality, like who's going to look at a guy like that and be impressed by that and think I want to be with that person, right? or guys. Like if you're what kind of dude who's like impressive is going to respect you and want to hang out with you and spend time with you if you're that fucking cringy piece of shit? And maybe as a charity project or something, like, there's people who I might do things. It's not exactly like a friend, but I might be like helping them with something, or it's like it's obvious there's something I could do to him. Like, and I don't to be clear, I don't look down at a person if I'm helping them. I look down at people who consciously, knowingly support the Holocaust. Is a different thing. Those are the people I'm calling pathetic, not the people who just don't have certain skills. There's a case where you help someone and you're not exactly their friend or whatever, but generally speaking, you want to spend time with people you perceive as being high quality, the high quality people, women, men alike, whatever you're trying to get. They can perceive that quality for themselves, and you are signaling your lack of it when you're being a cringy piece of shit. And one way to become less cringe is to be honest with yourself and work on actually like meaningfully engaging with things and thinking with your brain about them, and then finding out what aligns with your values and acting in line with your values. It's much more respectable to see a person who considers things fairly, who has a set of values that they care about, and who lives according to their values. Like, barely anyone is going to say that's like somehow a less impressive, which, by the way, the point isn't to be impressive. Like, it's kind of a weird way to frame it, but hopefully the point is getting across. Like, everyone's going to look at that person and go, that's the person who I would rather associate with, who I think is more interesting, who just everything about the person who has the values and thinks about things honestly and like lives by their values is more impressive than the person who just doesn't do any of that and more magnetic, more makes you want to be around them. So yeah, there should just be a point made in the dialogue about just not being cringe, and that being a reason to not support the Holocaust.
Yeah, very artfully put. I mean, there is just like so much dishonesty that's very clear on the face of it, and so much obfuscating. You're about to see that. I think it's this point in the conversation where I kind of reset and say, look, I can hear you talking about regulations getting stronger and whatever else, but just on a personal level. And I say, do you have a dog? To try and reach into his soul a little bit and actually get some honest reflections on what's going on here. I think this bit here.
Yeah, well, when people are coping about animals and you ask stuff like that, they'll often just lie. For instance, they might say something like, "Oh, if I needed to eat him, I'd slaughter him," or like, "Oh, but he's property, and you don't do that to property." And people generate all sorts of. Okay, we'll see what he does.
Fresh. They want to make sure it's hygienically produced. That's what you try to give the farmers, your customers.
Listen, this is coming from and by the way, we're nearly at half past, so we won't go longer than another 5 minutes. This is coming from your claim that it doesn't make business sense for farmers to abuse their animals or mistreat their animals or something like that. But that's not. I mean, do you think that it doesn't?
They're running an economic model. Okay.
Right.
If I've got a lot of
abuse doesn't mean a lot of sick animals. Like, it just
sick animals, I'm losing money. So the concept that I would abuse my animals, that I wouldn't treat the animal.
You're not talking about not treating them. This guy's a straw man machine.
And as I said, what I'm trying to say is, what is my evidence? Well, one.
But if you have those animals in their high welfare, like preferred conditions, clearly it's more expensive to rear them than if you have them in intensive. This is why we do factory farming. This is why we have intensive, right, high stocking densities. We talk about stocking densities. That's the main thing.
The reason we have so many animals in confinement in America is where they're produced. When I lived in Michigan, the winters are -20, -30.
Wait, is he making the claim that factory farm design is like purely a function of location? Like, he doesn't think there's other factors that influence the design of a fucking factory farm?
Yeah.
Is that like, again, he doesn't make his points very explicitly. He kind of says things and then it's supposed to imply something. So this is something you have to always tease out what they're trying to imply. But if that's the implication, that's pretty hilarious.
Yeah, that was a wild one. I couldn't believe it when I started saying it, honestly. The reason we have so many factory farms in America is because of the location. Because it's cold in Michigan, therefore factory farms.
Yeah, like we need a cozy, warm building for them, and that's why we like.
You can't have animals outside. Okay, so the reality is,
Wait, also, right. There's a part of the picture where, hey, if something's too cold for an animal to be outside and we want to farm there, we have to farm it in. Like, yes, there are considerations like that, but the idea that location is like the idea that that's the determining factor for factory farming just seems extremely implausible. Again, like I haven't done research on this, but I would think that the main reason is profit maximization. Like the whole thing is kind of like on the theory that it's just about okay, I don't want to go way down that road, but like you just look at a fucking factory farm and it's like it has the look at all sorts of fucking industrial operations have. It's like they're optimizing their space usage. They're, setting up as many kind of like automated things as they I don't fucking know. The point is it's an industrial context with a bunch of things tightly packed with a bunch of standardized procedures, like you're on a fucking like a car manufacturer or something like that, that's designed to do as much as possible as efficiently as possible.
Yeah.
I would assume that is the kind of reason factory farms are built the way they're built, more so than location. There's a ton of things that are
Absolutely.
that location alone would not predict. Like location would not predict that like inside of the walls of that building it'll also be like a highly crammed like factory style thing. Like if the only predictor is kind of like location or something, you'd
Well, do you know what I should
sorry,
have?
what's
Do you know what I should have said? Is do they not have factory farms in warmer parts of the country? Because of course
yeah,
they
that
do.
would have been a good point too. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously not and the point I'm making is almost the inverse of what you're making. You're like, well, look, you have more warm and still have. Maybe it's not the inverse. I guess I'm making a similar kind of point though. Which
I see what
is
you mean.
like,
Yeah, it's overdetermined.
if you, I don't know if I'm making it over. Well, oh yeah, it's another line of reasoning for the same thing. Yeah. So the thing is, like, if it was just location that caused you to build the building, why would the building have all these other characteristics, like being like extremely tightly packed or like operating like a factory or things
Right.
like this, right? Like, why wouldn't it be like an indoor pasture or something like that? Like,
Yeah.
Presumably it's because we're trying to make money. Having a fucking indoor pasture doesn't make you the same amount of money. Maybe location constrains us to be indoor in the first place necessarily, although maybe it would be overdetermined that we'd be indoor because that's better for other reasons. I don't know. But not like you look at a factory farm and location is not a hypothesis for that building being built that explains. It's not a hypothesis that explains a lot of the features that a factory farm has. So it's just a very weird thing to appeal to. Especially when you're giving an alternative hypothesis, which is about profit maximization, which like perfectly predicts the way the factory
seems
farm
to be
looks
what's
as
going
well.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
conditions also determine this. In Australia, even our feedlots are outside.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have to go in a few. I've stayed longer than I should, but I'm gonna pause less, so I won't comment on every frustrating thing this guy says. Let's see if we can get through the rest of it though.
Yeah.
They're just
Yeah.
they're pens. They're said high quality rations, depends on the market they're going to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now listen, so when I ask you about this, I get, I'm hearing that you're saying that standards are improving and that, well, I don't know, some bits I'm like, I don't know if that's right. On a just kind of like personal level, I guess, on an emotional level, do you have a dog, for example? Are you have an animal that you interact
Yeah,
with?
I've got a dog. Yeah.
And do you feel that it would be regrettable for your dog to be on a factory farm?
Again, we bred.
Another non-answer. This guy is constantly strawmanning, can't answer questions, always loosens his burden and raises your. Like, I have like a whole series of repeated complaints about this guy at this point now.
Why do we select dogs? Why do we have dogs? We selected them and we bred them for companionship.
Cool. You're not challenging any of that. Cool. You're not talking about compare. I can't. Yeah, fuck. I'm gonna end up pausing constantly. It's hard not to.
Yeah,
You're not
yeah,
comparing
yeah.
fucking.
I knew this bit would trigger you.
Like, like, what's he trying to argue against right now? Like, does he think your point is like, well, see, you have a dog, so maybe if we do a comparative analysis of cows versus dogs, factory farming, perhaps we should move into a world where dogs are like what the fuck does he think you're arguing right now? Like, just answer the question and let you deliver your follow-up. Also, another thing that's fucking annoying is when you can never deliver a follow-up because the person doesn't answer questions that are obviously just jumping point questions with quick answers so you can ask the next thing. They go on a fucking tirade everything.
Right, yeah, my question
all
at this
the sort
point
of
is, do you think it would be regrettable for your dog to be on a factory farm? Presumably that's an easy yes, and it's obvious that I'm going on to say something right.
Yeah. People are not, I also do not, like, I don't know, I haven't seen enough with this guy, so I don't know, he could be, like, bad at reading people. Again, I always hedge too much, but generally speaking, people are not fucking horrible at reading other people. So a lot of the time when they do that thing where they try to go on a big ramble when they answer the question, it's really because they're being driven by some kind of cognitive dissonance, and they're just trying to kind of riff into other stuff so the conversation changes, right?
He knows the follow-up question is coming, so he can't let it get there.
Yeah, it can have it can be different levels of consciousness about it, but like they know like, I don't believe, basically the point I'm making is that I don't believe that people don't actually realize you have a follow-up question. Like, it's very obvious when someone is asking something in a way that has a follow-up question. Wait, did you like that? No, like, I mean, if that wasn't a perfect example. I'm trying to think of I thought the tonality of saying that would make it obvious, but the tonality didn't come across right. But there's a lot of things where I'd have to think of an example, but I'm just going to let it sit there as an obvious fact that everyone can observe. Sure. It's very obvious when someone is going to ask. It's often very obvious when someone's trying to ask you something that has a follow-up question.
Are you going to finish eating that?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a great example. Like, that sometimes that one's just implicitly, can I have it if not? But I mean, it's pretty obvious they're asking for a reason. They have something else they want to ask.
Yeah, what they don't want is for you to say, well, for breakfast this morning I had right, that's what they're not looking for.
Yeah. Or like, well, there's waffles and there's toast, and if you do a kind of comparison between waffles and toast, like, we've had waffles historically and toast, like, it's like I'm not fucking asking any of that. So yeah, I think most people in that situation would sense that you are going to follow up either explicitly or implicitly with something along the lines of eating their food. Like, either you're if they say no, you're just going to reach over for the food, or you're going to say, oh, do you mind if I have it, or can I give it to so and so? Like it's very clear. So I want to like de-logicify the space. It's funny because I simultaneously have these two goals of like making there be less and more logic at the same time. It's not, I'm phrasing it in a funny way. It's not actually like that. I want to get rid of this kind of like sort of, I want to call it like trained autism or something, where it's like, I don't know, it's some kind of like only dealing with the content of what the person says and not looking at like very, very obvious human factors. Like, there's cases where we're having a debate, we just want to talk about a particular thing. It's kind of like you're derailing by going into all these human factors. Like, I understand there's places and times for things, but when it comes to like assessing people or when, like, there's lots of cases where that's not the case. I think that we want to get rid of the only looking at the content of what the person's saying. I think we need to look at let me just think for a second. We need to bring in some kind of obvious the basic human understanding of just a basic understanding of what the things that we understand. Sorry, a basic understanding that we have certain basic understandings, and a basic understanding of like what those are. Right? Like, it's like I just things like this. Like, most people can tell when you have a follow-up question. I'm tired of being overly charitable to people, and every time I ask a question and they go off on a riff, kind of assuming they just don't realize. I don't actually believe that. I think
this is where I think most people I should have interrupted more in the debate.
I think, yeah, well, maybe, and it could have implications for how you approach a debate. But I think most people can sense the follow up, like we just talked about, and they're actually, again, it can be different levels of intentionality going on here. It's not always totally conscious, but they're basically aware I'm trying to ask a thing, and they're trying to move away from that thing, right? I'm tired of like pretending that's not the case. So in that way, I want less logic almost. I want less like just emphasis on just purely the content of what they said. I want more emphasis on like very obvious telling things about how they're saying it or blah blah blah. But then on the other sense where I want more logic, I won't talk about that right now, but we've talked about that. It's like linearity, actually applying formal logic, having a topic, staying on track, blah blah blah. So
behaviors. Okay, we've bred all these multiple species. I think some
why are you
breeds
talking
of
about
dogs
this?
probably shouldn't be allowed because they
He's
have.
talking about inbuilt dog health issues. You
Yeah.
ask a question, and now we're on to inbuilt dog health issues, dog history.
Right.
Built health issues. So, yes, I think some breeding,
Dog selective breeding.
some selective breeding in dogs has gone too far.
But I'm not talking about breeding though.
No, but you
wouldn't
asked me
want.
about
You wouldn't.
Notice how you just keep having to repeat. Like I think you're doing a great job of keeping it centered.
Thank you.
You're just asking the same thing.
Want
Yeah,
your
I
dog to
really,
go
really
on.
took that from your debate tips thing, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a way to get even more linear. Like the topic has shifted a bit. At the start it was about abuse, now it's kind of about the dog. There's ways to get higher levels of linearity, and you have to know some stuff about logic and whatnot. But yeah, this is like clearly you're trying to get at something, and you've gotten you've gotten good at making it obvious that you're getting at a thing, and that the other person is just kind of like, for whatever reason, not addressing what you're saying.
It is
Factory-
quite
I'm-
easy
I'm
to get distracted by
talking about
the
factory-
Gish Gallop as well, right? Because you just get to a point
Yep.
where there might be a bunch of stuff in there that I want to respond to about dog breeding and whatever else other stuff that he's bringing up, right? It would be so easy to get dragged off the point entirely.
Which is actually what they want. Yeah,
Right.
it's counterintuitive because it feels when someone does the Gish Gallop, you're like, oh, I mean, if you're really competent with the topic, I think a pretty natural, response that a lot of people have is, oh, yeah, get ready to get fucking annihilated, dude. I have responses to all 37 of them. Like,
Right,
that's
right.
actually
Don't try
the-
and respond to every
the-
point.
No, like, and some people make systems for it, like they try to like write down all the points and stuff. But
Mhm.
I mean, even if you do address them all, you're creating the problem. The problem is at a kind of meta level of like what the conversation ends up overall looking like. It's
Yeah.
like this big soup of like 50 different points. Like it's not like what you really want is one thing and talk about that and then go to the next thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's this so there's the counterintuitive feeling that the right thing to do is to just unleash this like big fucking full frontal assault on like all those points. And actually counterintuitively, the best thing to do is actually say less. It's actually, again, like we've said before, concision, clarity, repetitiveness is actually counterintuitively the thing that really cracks through stuff like Gish Gallops.
Very, very
Not
good
trying to
tactics. Yeah.
multi-front combat the Gish Gallop. That just gets into muddy waters.
Mm-hmm.
Gish Gallop, basically, it's like a fallacy that will morph into another almost. It's like, it's this thing where like when you attack it, then it morphs into muddy waters. So it's like, there's not, you can't, yeah. I think we agree about that kind of stuff. I'm glad that you took that message though. I can see, even though again there's some differences because I do think at some point you should learn the logic stuff because there's things you can do to dial it in. I can very clearly see that you've got it in your head that like there's general phases to the debate and I'm trying to get at general things during those phases, and when someone's answering, I need to stay focused on what I asked and just see if they answer that, and if they don't, bring the conversation back to there. If I don't do that, it will turn into a big clusterfuck.
Nice.
That's right. 'Cause yours,
But
you seem to think.
Sorry, sometimes I double pause because I get tripped out because it's your voice in the video, so I think that you're starting to say something right as I'm playing.
I think there's no problem in the case of pigs, but if I were to take your
We
dog and
didn't-
put them in
we
that
didn't
cage,
breed dogs for meat. We
Not what you asked.
bred dogs.
I realised there was a missed opportunity here, though, because I could have said some dogs are bred for meat, and I feel like he even hesitated in the middle of that sentence because he knew some dogs are bred for meat. So I didn't go down that road, but yeah.
For companionship. We bred
Yeah,
in
good point.
dogs a natural ability. I have a border collie.
I didn't actually know that they're like that they do full on dog meat like operations or they breed them for that, but I mean, I guess of course they do. Like, yeah, I mean, presumably people who eat dogs aren't just eating all sorts of random like street dog breeds. Like,
No, they're
do they have like
dog
I've never
meat
looked
farms,
into
yeah.
I've never looked into actual dog farming. I've seen like puppy mills and stuff like that. But yeah, I
It's
mean, presumably it
pretty
looks
grim
similar to other
viewing.
farming.
Yeah.
No, fuck that.
Collie. He has a natural ability to relate to people. Okay, he would hate to be confined.
Well, this is a weird cope. It's like the dog doesn't like being confined because we've bred that into them, but the cow does?
Yeah, I love that. He's a border collie. He would hate that. I was like, what? Can you not hear yourself? What is this?
Oh, what about he's a cow? He would hate that. Like,
Because we've bred those dogs to relate to us.
Don't you
People
think
have
pigs
some-
also hate to be confined?
If you look at many of those things where they've got, as long as you give them ad lib food and water. I mean, we see this in some of the large dairy
Could say the
farms.
same for a dog there. We get a dog on his side, get a cage over him,
Yeah.
give him ad lib food and water. Absolutely you could. Of course you could.
oh, he doesn't want to. He wants to try to break the symmetry. So yeah, he can't. So now it can go kind of into like NTT between dog and cow farming.
Right.
And yeah, I guess we'll see how that goes.
No.
Yes, of course you could. What do you mean no?
Because, well, what you haven't listened to, we bred dogs for a particular. Dogs respond to humans. Okay.
It
Dogs
doesn't
are
matter
very
the purpose that they're
dependent
bred for. You are having
Say that we had bred dogs for the same thing. You can also
Yeah, that's
equalize
what I
that,
should've
right?
said,
Like
yeah.
you can fight it two ways. You can either take away the empirical point, which that'll create like a fight over the empirical point
Mhm.
sometimes. So if you want to have it, go for it. That's your move there. Or you can, if it doesn't damage your conceptual point, just grant the empirical point for the sake of argument to make them stay on topic and answer the thing.
a response to say that it would
It
be
does,
wrong to
because
put a dog on a
we've
factory farm that you
bred
don't have for a
them
pig.
to have particular behaviors.
So do you think a pig doesn't suffer on a factory farm?
I think in a situation
This
is
is the clipped bit.
Situation. Why do we change from factory farm to situation?
Yeah.
It's so funny how this guy is very obviously like everything about him, like the topics he's focusing on, the language that he's using, like he's in a. It's like there's a magnet. It's like anti-pole. Like it's like he's systematically across multiple domains, like his topic of focus, his language use, everything just being pushed away from actually talking about
Right.
the main thing that you want him to defend. And again, I find it so obvious. Like maybe some other people don't find it as obvious to see these kind of behaviors in people, but yeah, just think of people looking at you the way that we're looking at this guy right now, just seeing through someone this clearly, all of their fucking like weakness and patheticness. And do you want to be like that? And if you don't, then there's the anti-cringe argument for being vegan.
we bred those animals for food production. Okay.
Well,
In the
do you think
end,
they're
let's
suffering
be-
though?
Look, in the end, that animal is slaughtered. I know from your background,
Back to trying to make about slaughter. Again, it's not what you asked.
you wouldn't accept that at all. But
No,
that
I'm
is
not
the
talking about that
reality.
part though. Are they suffering on the factory farm?
Oh, you finally got an answer. Wow.
I think in most cases, no.
Okay. All right. Well, that's probably just as good a place as any to leave it.
We do, in fact, go on for another 5 minutes in this conversation, but I'm just noticing that you and I are now at 2 hours. So this place where I intended to leave it, and then we have 5 minutes of pretty much the same, might be a good place for us to leave it tonight.
Okay.
Unless you want to
Totally.
go on, I would.
Yeah.
I would if you are up for it. But I appreciate that you've already given me a lot of time.
I was going to, but if the topic kind of, you know what? I think I should probably stop. I get kind of sucked into things, but you are right. It has been 2 hours. So I'm going to make some food and stuff, but we can watch more later. Like, again, now we have the whole setup for video. So, I mean, you can just build up a playlist and just link me anything you want me to have for when we're talking. I'll just have them downloaded and ready. So we can just watch more stuff if there's other stuff too, or watch more of this if you want to go over the rest.
Sounds good. All right, dude. Well, yeah. As ever, I appreciate the time and glad to marks out of 10 on this debate performance.
Yeah, well, I've only seen a segment, but I want to say like pretty good. Like I want to say like I don't know, like a 8 or something. Like
Nice.
you
I'll take it.
to get yeah, like I mean, because the basic thing that I'm seeing here, I'd have to watch it over again, because we've been doing a bit of commentary and stuff like that, and that can also mess with seeing the flow of it and stuff, and I don't have the whole context. But the way that this overall section looks to me is basically you're more or less trying to get at the same thing the whole time. You're basically trying to understand if he thinks that factory farms are abuse. And we've got this like very long section of him just trying to avoid that. And you over and over and over again coming back to the point, no matter what derail is placed in front of you. So that right there is like most of the marks of being good at debate. just not getting thrown off the point. Some people can avoid getting thrown off the point once or twice, but it's like a rodeo or something. To use a like non-vegan analogy or whatever. It's like you're getting bucked off sooner or later. But this is a good example where you just weren't. You just stuck to the thing all the way to the end, and now he said some insane bullshit. Maybe he says more. I don't know what happens with the rest. But yeah, so I mean, my overall read is it seems like you had a point. It seems like you were linear about your point. It seems like you were pretty clear and concise in your phrasing and stuff. So this is very much the kind of way that I would recommend approaching these discussions. Also, your tone and stuff is good. You're not coming off like in any like weird way or anything. And yeah, to get the further points, I think that you'd want to learn some of the like debate mech and formal logic and stuff like that, and then you can clean it up a lot, which doesn't mean being hyper technical, by the way. It doesn't mean that you couldn't talk to someone like this who doesn't have that same technical grounding. It would just help you clean up your own stuff even further, and just have a better sense of the map and do a few things more cleanly. But yeah, so that's my overall answer, plus some directions for going forward.
Nice, dude. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the chance to learn from you and your community. And yeah, like I said, I got a bunch of help from Nick's community on this debate, so thanks for that connect as well. And
totally.
Yeah.
Well, one other thing before you go, you should actually probably teach yourself logic. I mean, I do lessons. Like, some people use the Patreon perk to get lessons. I'll walk them through it and stuff, but I don't think you would need that, because, like, again, just to give a sense of the difficulty, like, learning propositional logic, which really all you want to really for most of these debates is propositional logic and first order logic. But even propositional logic will do most, like, it'll hugely level you up in how you think and how you're able to operate in these. But the difficulty level there is like less than grade 9 math. Like, it would be, I think, very clearly more challenging to do a grade 9 math course with like quadratic equations and all that kind of shit than it would be to learn propositional logic. So that's one point. It's not hard to learn, and you probably could do it solo. And then in terms of how to, there's a text. I recommend this one, but you have to pay for it. It's paid. There's also free things. I just haven't explored them. So you can go another road, but I'll type it to you.
Nice.
It's Formal Logic with Philosophical Applications by Russell Marcus. So that text goes over propositional logic and first order logic. So if you were to like go to university and take a logic course, basically what you'd learn is propositional logic and first order logic. And then in higher level courses that you might learn maybe you learn modal logic, you learn fancy things about proof and stuff like that. But a standard logic course, propositional logic and first order logic. Obviously, most people who learn this stuff don't learn it for the purpose of debate, and it kind of fades and doesn't do much for them. But if you're doing public reasoning and stuff like that, then you're going to get huge value out of it, and you can learn it from a very applied point of view. Like, I'm learning this to use it rather than theoretical kind of thing. So yeah, I think if you look at that text, it's combined with philosophy, and not complicated philosophy. It's not trying to teach you any complicated philosophy, but it applies the logic to philosophical questions. So it's got a nice kind of applied angle to it. And it's separated into sections. I forget how it works. I think it's like propositional logic, then first order logic, then a section of philosophy problems and stuff. And I don't even tell people to do the whole book, actually. This is the book I used when I learned propositional logic, though.
Nice.
I think I learned first order from it also. But yeah, if you just get through the first third of that book, you'll have an understanding of propositional logic. You just put in a bit of time every day, or do an hour or two on the weekend here or there, and then within a few weeks or months or however, depending how often you work on it, you'll just have this skill. If you just hammered away at it straight, like you made it top priority, you probably get it done in like a week or two. But I mean, most people, you're probably busy and don't have time for that, so it might be spaced out. But yeah, I would like very much recommend doing that. And also, you should definitely do the exercises. I don't. Some domains are a little different and not so, and the exercises aren't so much important. But like with logic, it's like math. Like the whole thing that confirms to you that you got it is like you can do the exercise and get the right result. And then there's also some online tools that are really useful. Truth table generator. And nice thing about logic, you can kind of check your work to see if you're getting things right. So here is also the truth table generator from Stanford. So that's just a handy tool to have when you're doing that. You'll see how it works when you get into the book. But yeah, I would really recommend doing that. Again, I'm happy to show you if you want to learn, or there's others. Nick is cheaper. You can do it with Nick also. But highly recommend that because you've got a lot of the linearity stuff going. And then the next step to be able to crank that up is to have the framing for some of these more advanced concepts. And that'll help you do... I can't really explain it without you having the concept, so we're at a bit of a dead end there, but I'll just say there is more technical stuff that will help you with what you're currently trying to do, which will open up if you have certain prerequisites, and one of those is logic, so it's worth getting it done, because then we could talk about some of that stuff.
Okay, yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm definitely going to look at these resources that you sent. I'll probably get this textbook. Be working through the logic textbook that AY himself learned from.
And your goal is just the first third. I mean, you could probably do more after, but just get through the first third. That's propositional logic. You get through 1/3 of that text and you know a basic logic system, and it will absolutely change how you think about things.
Sweet. I'm ordering it now.
Okay. All right. And yeah, just if you get stuck or have questions, you can always ask stuff about that too. Okay. All right. Have a good rest of your day.
You too, buddy. Thanks again. I appreciate you.
Okay. Yep. All right. Bye.
Cheers.